Welcome to Conversations at the Effie, located on the unceded territory of the Kamloops Taste-Wekmek at the Effie Arts Collective, where we talk about interesting people in Kamloops and meet them and see what they're doing. And today I'm joined by Michael Wright.
Hi.
A self-proclaimed adventurer, child comedian.
That's exactly it, yeah.
And my first question to you is, how do you decide who calls you Michael and who calls you Mike?
I leave that up to the person themselves. It's all based on them.
Just personal preference, you don't have...
I don't have a personal preference, no. It's better than what most people normally call me, which I don't know if it's TV friendly, but yeah, Mike or Michael's, whatever.
So you've had a very small, a small temporal relationship with Kamloops. Originally from Prince Edward Island?
Prince Edward County.
Prince Edward County.
Which oddly is an island.
In Ontario.
Yes, yeah. And I moved out to BC. Kamloops was my first place I moved to like 10 years ago. The April 1st will be 10 years. Yeah, Kamloops was like my home for 8 years. This place has seen me at my worst and quite possibly my best.
So how did you hear about Kamloops in Ontario?
So my brother had been living here for about 3 or 4 years prior. And like everyone that moves to BC, I just went through a breakup. I hated my job and my life. And I was like, I need a change of scenery. And mountains and cacti were a great choice. And he told me to come out and move out there with him, and I did.
There seems to be many story of famous British Columbians that came because of family members with nothing in their pockets, and they just happened to come out because there was nothing better to do, and then stumbled into something life-changing that gave them purpose.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like the mountains or the gold. Maybe we're still like wired for that eureka moment of the gold panning, but we're panning for something else in life. Like, when I moved out here, I was quite a heavy drinker, and I continued that on as per tradition of the Irish, and then I quit drinking. I just wanted to I was like, I've lived here for about 6 years, or I think 5 years at the time. And I was like, I haven't even explored this place. It's like one of the most beautiful places in the world to explore. And I'm like, there's a beautiful mountain there, isn't it? And then you don't remember it, right? Oh, that was a Bose honk. But and you don't remember these journeys that you go on. And so I wanted to experience BC for everything it had to offer. So I was like, I'm going to quit the booze.
So did you get into video to remember your adventures that you were partaking on?
Yeah, pretty much. I kind of got into that. I've always wanted to be like a kind of a comedian or a comedic filmmaker. Like growing up, my parents were Curly, Larry, and Moe. And they did a wonderful job. And so I always kind of wanted to do that, but I also liked the outdoors and doing adventures and things. And just a shameless promotion. But yeah, so when I quit drinking, I needed something to occupy my mind and my time. And yeah, getting into video, I felt like would be the way. So I wanted to do like comedic hikes and adventures and things. I don't know if that answered the question or not.
Well, what's something that your parents showed you, maybe introduced you to, that you're like, now you look back, you're like, maybe that's kind of inappropriate for parents to show their kids?
Well, the TV, they were definitely like right there, just, yeah, you can watch that for 17 hours a day, you're fine. That was like my babysitter. But when I was younger, my dad used to always let me watch like these really bad B-rated horror movies, which I absolutely loved. I think I was like, I don't know how old I was, but Army of Darkness had just come out and he was really excited about it. I might have been like 10 or 11. And he was just like, yeah, we're going to watch this. Don't tell your mom, but we're going to watch this. And it was like the greatest thing ever. because they had like throwbacks to the Three Stooges, like laden throughout all of that. So to me, it was just like, this is like the greatest thing ever. There's blood, there's guts, there's like poking eyes and like all this like Three Stooges kind of stuff, but in a horror movie. And I was like, I like that. I need more of that. But maybe not some of the ghosts, because that was scary.
Who's the first person you met in Kamloops that you were like, all of a sudden got a connection with?
Chris Bowes. Chris Bowes, artist, and what was his thing that he said?
A raconteur?
Raconteur, yeah. When I met Bowes, him and I just had like this instant connection. Because I like, with the filming and stuff, I wanted to do like sketch comedy. And he was just like, yeah, I've heard that a million times. People always say they want to do it. And he's like, come over then with some sketches. And I had like a book, like books piled up this high. I was like, well, which one do you want to do? And he's like, oh man, that's a lot. So we ended up like sifting through them and seeing which ones we both kind of liked and which ones we thought were good or which ones were kind of garbage or not. And we ended up doing a bunch of skits. We started a YouTube channel called Pablo Hemingway and Friends, where we just kind of filmed whatever we thought might be funny or what we thought people might find funny. And yeah, meeting him, actually, he really pushed me out of a comfort zone that I had a lot of years. I think part of my drinking was based on me letting my ego take over and me being a bit of a chicken shit to get out and do that stuff, like people like yourself that get up and do stand-up, and I've always admired that. So I guess the second big connection would be the Effie Arts Collective that really pushed me to go where I'm going now too. So
Did you find that people in Kamloops were supportive or more negative towards exploration?
oh man, people were super supportive here. I play hockey here, and a lot of my friends were drinkers. And everyone was really supportive. Like when I said, like, I was like, yeah, I'm quitting drinking and I'm going out and trying to do some stuff in the arts. And they were like, yeah, okay. If that's what you want to do, go do it. Like, no one was like, oh, that's stupid, or they find it weird. But no one was really like that here. And in my circle anyways. And that was like, in playing hockey and telling people that I'm getting into like filmmaking and doing that and exploring these different arts, I was met with a lot of support, which was good. Which is weird in Kamloops because we don't have a huge art thing, right? Like, I mean, that building was shut down that they wanted to build, right? The arts, what was that called?
Right, the Performing Arts Center.
Yeah, the Performing Arts Center. Most people voted that down, and I'm like, what are you doing? And I guess it was too blue collar, like it's too blue collar here, and that wasn't blue collar enough for them.
Do you have advice for introverts on how to become salesmen?
It's honestly, I don't know if I'm like an introvert or more of an extrovert, but I mean, it's just pushing those comfort zones. Like, you have to do it. Like, it's nerve-wracking going out there. Like, to be a salesperson, I guess you kind of have to it's almost natural, right? Like, it's almost you have to have that natural gift of the gab to be able to go out and just randomly talk to people and stuff. Like, it is kind of anxiety inducing to do that, but you just have to push it through. And if it's for a good enough cause, if your cause is good enough, you're going to be able to push through that, right? Like, if you truly believe in your political stance, then you got to get out and push that comfort zone, because it's going to make other people, like, it's going to make their lives better, right? If that's what your political thing is to, you know, make people's lives better or whatever. I guess, is it a political thing for us not getting the Arts Center here?
Well, it went to a referendum, so it is a vote,
Yeah,
which is the basis of politics, is really getting people to vote. And the voting turnout was much less than for a municipal election even.
Yeah.
So it was, very, very...
So the 6 of us that voted didn't...
Exactly.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, like, the advice really is just get out and push that comfort zone. of being introverted. Like, it's not that bad. Like, rejection isn't that bad if you're, you know, you get over it.
What led you to leave Kamloops?
I love the ocean. So I moved to Victoria, and Victoria kind of reminds me of like where I grew up. It kind of reminds me of like a town called Kingston in Ontario. Like, I grew up pretty close to that. It's very, now that I think about it, kind of white, but it's very Victorian and like loyalist sort of stuff. Yeah, that's quite white, isn't it? But I loved it. And then there's the ocean, and you know, I wanted to scuba dive, so you know, I took up scuba diving. And I think Victoria is a fairly liberal town, and getting into the arts and stuff there, I felt like it would be a better move in a sense. Although I still get a lot of work here in Kamloops.
When you're approaching a documentary, how do you put your artistic spin on it?
I guess, yeah, I would go at it in a way of like trying to put like a comedic spin on a documentary, which might not always be that great, but I feel like even in very serious documentaries, you'd have to have some kind of comedic light, because if it's too heavy for like an hour and a half, people are just going to be emotionally drained at the end of it, right? So I don't know if that's an artistic spin, but I guess comedy is an art. Right?
Not according to the Canadian government.
Yeah, not according to them, yeah. It's been a struggle for a lot of years for any sort of comedy to get like good funding in Canada, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, it's technically, it's not considered an art, so there's no federal funding for comedy, for stand-up comedy.
so is poetry an art form?
Yes.
And music is.
So if you write your jokes in prose, you can get funding.
So when you're writing comedy for stand-up comedy, it's very comparable to writing music, right? Like, it has to be on a beat, essentially. Like, your punchline has to be at a certain beat, right? Like,
That's a good perspective.
so maybe we need to take that to the government. Come on, introverts, let's go to the government. We should have a comedians convoy.
The Kamloops Comedian Convoy.
Yes. We'll ride our pads of paper and pencils all the way to Parliament.
So growing up close to Kingston, how many times have you seen The Hip?
Not as many as I probably should have, which was kind of a regret. When I was younger, I was a punk rocker, so it wasn't like super cool to like The Hip, but I always secretly loved them because, yeah, being right by Kingston. But we snuck over to the bars a couple times. I was underage, and we'd sneak in just to see The Hip because I had a couple buddies that loved them, and we'd get in there and watch them. I can't remember the name of the bar that they always played at. Even when they're starting to get bigger, they'd go back there because it was like their roots. And I mean, Gord Downey just loved the place still. He actually lived in Prince Edward County for a while. Not a lot of people knew that.
Almost a neighbor.
Yeah, almost a neighbor, yeah. I wouldn't have ever have seen him, but... I wish I did watch them more, obviously now, hindsight, but... yeah, they put on some good concerts there.
Do you think there's a lot of humor in The Hip's lyrics?
I don't know a lot of their lyrics that well, but I would say there probably has. In some of them, they definitely have some humor, yeah. Like New Orleans is Sinking? That's hilarious.
What do you think is the hardest comedy to sell?
Hardest comedy to sell? In what sense? What do you mean? Like, can you dumb that down for me?
Sure. What there's slapstick comedy that can be very popular in movies. You're talking about the Three Stooges and stuff, and then there's higher level dry comedy. Satire can be sometimes very hard to distinguish.
Yes, it's so hard now, right? Like, satire would probably be one of the hardest, I think, because people don't seem to understand that it's satirical, and therefore it comes off as just being hateful or mean. And it's like, no, I'm making fun of the hateful and mean. Like, I don't mean that. It's like it's satire, but they don't really get it. I guess that slapstick is another. I find like physical comedy to be a dying art form. You know, like you look at guys like Michael Richards on Seinfeld. His physical comedy in that was amazing, right? What's his face from Three's Company? John Ritter. His physical comedy was incredible, right? Like, so I feel like I don't know if that's a hard sell, but it seems to be dying off.
Is Jackass physical comedy?
Yeah, that would almost get its own category, right? Like stunt comedy, because I guess obviously there's physical aspects to it of like getting shot out of a cannon or putting a car in your butt, or a dinky car, I should say, not an actual car, because that'd be a big butt. But yeah, satire to me would probably be the hardest one to sell, I think.
So you went this fall. You went through quite a traumatic struggle, where you lost your home in the big storm that happened off Victoria. You were living in a boat at the time.
Yeah.
And it ran aground, and then you were robbed of all your stuff.
Yeah.
How do you, when you're in a place like that, I know you must be sort of living on the edge as it is, and to have something like that happen, how do you pick yourself up and keep going?
You just got to. I mean, what good is just like sitting on the shore crying gonna do about it, right? Like that's not gonna get me back into a home, or like, you know, like you just can't sit there and dwell on the negative side of things. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of positive that came out of it. Actually, no, that's not true. I met a guy came down and helped me, and him and I are like good friends now. So, I mean, that's like, you got to focus more on that positive side of things, because just sitting there and dwelling in that kind of negativity isn't going to help you in any way. Like, it's just, you have to just move past that stuff, right? Like, yeah, it was crappy that it happened, but I don't see what crying over spilled milk would have helped, right?
Have you found the humor in it yet?
You know, the first day I was kind of cracking jokes about it. I can't remember any of them because I was, you know, still kind of in that moment. But I mean, it was funny. Yeah, I mean, in a sense, you know, I have, you know, my YouTube channel, Adventures and Things, and to me, like, the next logical step was to buy a boat, live on the boat for a year and document it, and then like 3 months into living into it, the boat's up on shore, and I'm like, no, there it goes, right? Like, apparently I'm not good at the boat life, so yeah, you just gotta, that's the thing though, that's the key thing, is finding the humor in it, right? Like, I mean, there's, people go through traumatic things, you just gotta find the funny in it somehow.
Do you find humor in the world around us right now, where we're, you know, we're still in a pandemic, you know, there's war threatening, and
yeah,
politics are upended?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, I mean, you can still find the humor in certain things, right? Like, I heard one guy say, like, oh, the pandemic's starting to come to an end, and all it took was World War III. So, to me, that's kind of funny. Not everyone maybe will laugh, but it's about finding that humor, I think, right? And I don't know. It's just life, man. Life is a joke, isn't it? Didn't Eric Idle say, life is but a joke? Always look on the bright side of life. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess it's not funny for some people, but for me, it's kind of funny.
Can you explain how YouTube can actually be profitable?
Yeah, through AdSense and branding deals. I had a company reach out to me and want to do tutorials on their editing software, and so they paid me to do that. So that right there is one way. Then AdSense, you don't get a lot of AdSense if you don't get a lot of views. So like and subscribe and watch. That's the big part too. So Yeah, I mean the monetization. You know you need your 1,000 subscribers, 4,000 watch hours, and then you get money from the ads. So the ads those annoying ads that play, I get a kickback from that once I'm at that echelon of 1,000 and 4,000, and then brand deals. Like certain brands will reach out to you and be like, do a commercial for us or talk about how amazing this product is, and you just talk about it, and they give you money.
Have you been recognized yet because of your YouTube?
Oddly enough, yeah. I came back to shoot a project here in the summer, and I was like filming something, and then I saw someone kind of standing just like waiting, and they came up and was like, "Hey, are you Mike from? I see you on YouTube." I was like, "Yeah, that's me." And they started talking, and it was actually kind of weird. Like I was like, "Oh, what do you mean?" Yeah, it's me. But so one person has recognized me. Yeah. So I'm pretty famous.
What's your majority of work coming from right now?
What do you mean? Like where? Like what am I doing to?
Yeah, what's your? I know you must have many irons and different fires to survive, as most artists do.
Yeah.
So what's the majority of your work at the moment? Is it
Serb. Yeah. No. No. Filmmaking and photography is where I make most of my money. Whenever that gets better, like weddings and stuff I was doing, but then that all kind of shut down for a while. So, I'm kind of hoping with all these mandates kind of being lifted to get more into that, more into filmmaking. I kind of freelance on the island, so there's a couple companies that I work with, and they just hire me on to go shoot some B-roll, or sometimes like we did a show about them moving a house from like Victoria over to Salt Spring Island, and basically I walked behind a truck with a camera and followed it. It wasn't supposed to necessarily happen that way, but I wanted to get a shot of the truck going by, and then I couldn't pass because it was like the whole road. So I walked like 7 kilometers or 8 kilometers with this big camera. I was like, well, I might as well film it. But that's some of the work that I do. Yeah.
in the bigger city? What do you miss about Kamloops?
You know what I really miss is going for a hike and not having like 500 other people around there. Like just going out to like Battle Bluff or something, and you might see one other person, and that's about it. It's really nice to be able to drive somewhere and go for a hike by yourself, which is sometimes dangerous, but that's what I like about Kamloops, the danger.
Do you find filmmaking is solitary?
I'd say it's more team oriented. I guess it depends what you're doing. Like when I film by myself, it's very solitary, but in most senses, like it's very team oriented. I think to be on any sort of film project, you have to work with the other people around. So yeah, very very teamy. That's why they have team stirs.
Do you like your comedy to be more team oriented then, or are you enjoying this stand up where you're on your own?
Yeah, that's a good question. I like both. So what I've heard from a lot of stand-up comedians is that the reason they got into stand-up is because they don't necessarily work well with others, which I get, because there's times where you're writing something and to you it's hilarious, and then you're trying to explain that to someone you're writing with, and they're like, yeah, I don't get it. And then, if you go up on stage and do it and the crowd gets it, you're just like, yeah, they get it. Why don't you? And so in that sense, it's kind of tough. But like, I guess team writing would be more of your sketches and stuff, and you can kind of feed off of each other that way. But I don't know if I have a preference. I kind of like writing alone and then trying it. But sometimes if you have the team, then you have someone to blame, which is nice. Be like, no, see, that joke failed because of you.
Have you found a mentor in Victoria to replace Chris?
Not well. No one can replace Chris. he's one of a kind, that guy, but not exactly. Kind of. There's a guy that has been doing film there since like the 70s, Gamut Productions, and he knows a lot about filmmaking and stuff. So, but he's so busy that it's hard for him to actually mentor. Like, where Chris kind of just took me under his wing and we did our thing. Another person that mentored me with filmmaking, whenever I get the chance to, is Jordan Nicholson. You probably know him.
I've heard of him, yes.
Yeah, incredible filmmaker. The guy is like a genius when it comes to filmmaking. You're welcome. And no, but he's incredible at filmmaking. He helped me with my project in the summer, and there's just like so many little things that you forget about, and Jordan's just like, oh yeah, just do it like this, and you're like, it's brilliant. Like, but on the island, I haven't really found anyone quite like those two, really. I think that's kind of where it ties into like the big city and the small town thing, is there's more of an intimacy here. It's fun to get intimate with those guys in that sense.
What would Kamloops have to have other than an ocean to really bring you back?
Other than an ocean, yeah, that's tough. You know, because I actually love the weather here. I love like the sunshine here. There is a lot of good stuff about Kamloops. If you could get rid of the winter, that would be amazing. Our 2 days of winter in Victoria I've grown accustomed to that. But honestly, if there became more of a stand-up scene here, which I know that Effie is working really hard on doing, and it's amazing. I thank you so much for that. More, I guess, yeah, more of like a comedy scene and more of a I guess more full-time filmmaking that you could do, right? Like there's a couple companies in town that have like production companies, but it's kind of like they keep themselves busy. They can't really hire other people on. So, yeah, so they just basically have more of a comedy scene and no winters, which one is out of our control, but one day we'll get rid of those winters.
So if we talked again in 5 years, where do you think you would be like to be the happiest?
Probably like a touring comic, I think, would be pretty awesome. Although like I'm old for it, it's just something that I think would be awesome. Like if I could just maybe have like be able to tour and then make money through YouTube, but also tour as a comic. I think that would be like my ultimate goal.
Well, Rodney Dangerfield was 47 before he made it big, so he's still got lots of time.
Yeah, that's true. He did start off when he was younger and then quit for like, 20 years or something, and then got back in and really made a name for himself when he was like 47 or 50. Was it 47? That's crazy. 47 years old. And look at how huge he got too. Like everything happened for him after that. So yeah, I guess, I mean, it could happen. Right?
Still never got respect though.
No, still no respect for that guy.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Michael or Mike.
Either one is
for
good, yeah.
coming by and talking. And we wish you your best in Victoria, but we hope that you come back to Kamloops.
I always make sure to come back here. It's like a second home to
hopefully
me.
Your brother never leaves.
Yeah, he's a lifer.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And thank you for tuning in to Conversations, and we hope to see you next time.